Hey everyone, we are back for the second post-Kickstarter update video for DaemonClaw, and by we, of course, I mean with me as always is Corey. Say hi, Corey.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Alright, so first we'll jump into what I've been working on. If you guys recall from the last video, we mentioned that we had worked out the general gameplay design for Gareth, and I had made a quick placeholder sprite sheet for him. We got that to NeoFid, and they have largely implemented him now. So probably this week we will have our first phase of actually being able to start playing as Gareth and testing and refining his gameplay. And then aside from that, if you guys recall, there's 3 versions of the game that will ultimately be done. I'm working on the game design and programming side on the PC version, and my goal for the entire development cycle of both the Megadrive and the Neo Geo version is to stay ahead of those development teams for those platforms and get the rest of the game designed gameplay-wise and actually implemented programming-wise with placeholder art so that we can perfect as much as possible the gameplay to a point where it's actually safe, or mostly Corey and with me helping to whatever degree is necessary to get all the final pixel art for all the stuff done. That way the design work and the pixel art will be ready once they are ready to use it on those other teams. So lately what I've gotten done is the level 2 boss, which Corey and I took a look at. First I got it working mostly, and then Corey and I kind of reviewed it together and made our final decisions on anything that needed to be tweaked, and I did that. So it's fully functional now, not polished and still buggy, but bugs are fine at this stage. We just need it to be very safe for the art to get made and for the overall design to be finished for especially NeoFid, who's making the Megadrive version, so they can just never be waiting, never be bottlenecked, and never have to iterate design work on the Megadrive side because it will have already been done. So not only did I finish the level 2 boss design and behavior, but also I've been working now on level 3, which I got in a sub-boss section that we had planned. That's now mostly working. I should get that fully functional later today, in fact. Yep, and some of that actual kind of creative scrum that Corey and I were doing on the level 2 boss fight was actually recorded, which is something kind of unique that we at BitBeamCannon have been doing throughout this entire creative process for DaemonClaw, is actually recording our actual creative meetings. And so all of our Patreon patrons, very shortly after the meetings were done, they got to sort of sit in on the creative process and see how we came up with the different ideas, what the thought processes were. And so it's pretty cool. Like over time, they would actually see us come up with the idea just in our head or with scribbles in a graphics program like this or something. And then after we got it implemented, they would see it roughly working, and then in a later video, they would finally see the polished version. So not only is that something that our patrons have access to, but it's one of the things that we offered on the Kickstarter is a boxed DVD that comes with a Steam key for the game itself, but also the DVD is not a DVD version of the game. It's actually going to be a nice collection of all of the most important creative design videos, like our actual creative meetings for designing the game. And that's about it for me. So what have you been working on, Corey?
Yeah, since the Megadrive version is the first that needs to be completed, my task has been making sure everything that we've made so far gets converted properly for Megadrive, and this includes reformatting the way the palettes work. If you can see these sprites here, for example, this is the main sprite palette that the hero uses as well, and we're making sure the enemies adhere to this for now. There's a little wiggle room for changing this up on different levels, but for levels 1 and 2, this is the way it's going to work. So this owl has been reworked a little bit to use that same palette. And the cool thing that we're doing is there's going to be like a secondary sort of effects palette, which is like a brighter version of the same sprite palette. So on the Megadrive, we'll actually have this neat ability to, not only does it flash the main character for his like fully powered up cloak effect, but we could also use that for some of the magical effects and some of the enemies. We're going to work out details of how that can work. So, you know, like enemies getting shocked or exploded or whatever, like maybe they can flash, or there's various ideas we have for how to utilize that. So
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
making sure that all of the art adheres to this new sort of set of palette rules that we have going on.
Yep.
And I've also went back and reformatted a little bit of the level 1 stuff too, to make sure the Birdmen look as good as possible with this color palette, to make sure we push the quality as high as we can.
Yeah, awesome. And speaking of that and sprite sheets in general, not only were you refining the color usage and making sure it adheres to the exact color palettes that are needed, but you've also been properly formatting the sprite sheets exactly how they need. One animation per row based on an 8x8 tile grid and trimmed as closely as possible, but also centered, so to speak, for each animation frame.
If you go back to the owl there, an example of this process, there's the slight optimization that can come with making sure that this aligns with an 8x8 grid, for importing. But then there's also like little enhancements and improvements. Like the owl has a diving ability that we added later after making the owl, and I had never made a diving frame for it. So now it exists. Well, it's actually 2 frames that move a little bit. The other bird works the same way. So,
exactly.
So there's little, along the way, for even things that exist, any small enhancements or little additions that we originally were intending on doing are getting made as I go.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Corey is getting the guys at NeoFid the art exactly as they need, perfectly formatted to make the best use of Megadrive. And then that step will translate right over to Neo Geo, where it's just taking it the next step further later on after the fact, because right now we need to focus on Megadrive because it's got the shortest dev cycle, and we just need to really polish it up and perfect the game ASAP alongside NeoFid. But then we'll have many months after the fact. We'll be giving the Megadrive style art to the Neo Geo developers, and they can get the game working on Neo Geo, so they're not just kind of sitting on their hands waiting. But then Corey will have many months after the Megadrive version is otherwise done art-wise to just start adding all the extra color and details and effects and whatever we're going to do on the Neo Geo side of things. So that's how it's going to work, is the Neo Geo dev team also gets to just keep marching right along, using really nice looking quote-unquote placeholder art that is the final Megadrive art, and then it'll get further enhanced after the Megadrive version is pretty much done. Oh yeah, and back briefly onto the programming side, and so they've been getting that working, and now we know what to do for the art. Otherwise, level 2 is taking shape on the Megadrive. And then I guess the last thing to mention is the printed material side of things, where I did get together the templates for all of the stuff that we need to deliver ultimately for all the physical versions, but also specific Kickstarter related stuff like the 6 trading cards that are going to come in all the boxed versions. And so I get all the templates from the printing companies required, like you have to format them in a super specific way for any particular thing, and it can be different per printing company. So I got that all worked out, and those are ready and waiting for me to start sketching in for example, those 6 cards, and some of the other stuff we're already farther along in designing, like the art book cover and all that kind of stuff. So that's all going smoothly, and we're on track. We mentioned in our first video how critically important it was to kind of schedule everything out as best we could and make sure the schedule was realistic and make sure we weren't forgetting any big thing we need to do. So I guess the last update for this video is we are on track, everyone. We're on schedule. And obviously we'll continue to do our best to stay that way. Technically, I've actually gotten a little ahead of schedule, but I know that can kind of be an illusion because there's always stuff you didn't foresee that pops up. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching.
If you enjoy our content and want to keep up to date on our games, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, if you want to support our projects, consider becoming a patron. The link's in the description, and we'll see you soon.